Hello, you're watching the Brian Roberts Guitar Academy. For this video I'm going to attempt to show you how to build your very first bar chord, the F chord. Alright, so building F. This is usually one of the biggest hurdles for a beginning guitar player, so I'm going to try to show you my best way to approach it. I remember having trouble with this, especially on top of the acoustic guitars, and just something to consider is the action of your guitar. If your action is very high, it's going to be more difficult to attempt a stunt like this. I don't know if you can see on this guitar, but the action is relatively low in comparison to a more entry-level guitar, which I'm going to show you right now, how the action is much, much higher than the other example. So something to consider as you attempt to do the F. Don't let the action discourage you, however. If you get better at using a guitar that has a really high action, when it's time to upgrade to a better piece of equipment, you'll be a lot better off. Basically what an F is an E chord that's been moved over. And our index finger then becomes the artificial nut. Okay? So let's get into it. Building F. There's a couple different things that work here. Okay? First being the bar. Okay? What the bar is almost like an artificial nut. Okay? We use our index finger to flatten down the entire fretboard. Okay? And so the idea is that that index finger is going to be acting like how this would be. Okay? So that's one thing that you can already start doing, is just working on the bar itself. The idea is that you want every single string to sound out nicely. And you can always double check that by plucking each individual string, making sure you get every note resonating. A common problem is something like this. And that's what you want to try and avoid. And now, usually the immediate remedy is just to squeeze down harder, and I mean that will work if you just muscle it, but I'm not really applying that much force in between my thumb and my index finger to make sure that I get those nice resonating notes. Also, something to consider is that I'm not using the exact flat end of my finger. I'm kind of using maybe about a 45-degree angle off to the side, kind of the more bony part of my finger. I'll show you when I press an indent. I'll show you on the camera, but when I actually bar something, I'm kind of using the side of my finger. I don't know if you can see the indentation, but it's the side of the finger, not flat straight on. You get a little bit more bonier exposure using the side of your finger rather than the fleshy, meaty part of the pad of your finger. Okay. Anyway, so that's one part of the bar chord. The other parts of the bar chord is, I kind of view it like a triangle. Okay, and there's a couple different angles that you want to work at. If you remember from doing a power chord, if you've been practicing power chords, that's going to help set you up for bar chords as well. So let's say we're building F, right, which is, I always suggest this to be your first bar chord. If we play an F power chord, it would look something like this. Alright? Now, you may have even gotten to the point where you have fused the ring and pinky together to do a 3-string power chord. And if that's the case, you're even one step closer. Okay? So this is one aspect of the bar chord that you can work on. This would, I would call this the northern aspect, the northern side of the triangle. Okay? And again, we want to focus on that. We want to focus on each note sounding good. And somebody has to be backing up right now. That's just how it works. Okay. So we have this power chord. In conjunction with this bar, if you put the two together, we're one step closer. Okay. So that's one part of the bar chord. I call this focusing on the highest 4 strings, or in this case the highest 3. To make it a major bar chord, what we want to do is we want to put our middle finger right there. Okay? And that, you could get away with just doing that, and that is an F. but if you incorporate these strings, it throws it off. But this is a good little piece of practice. Just kind of focusing on getting each finger to sound good. You don't want to have any ghost notes. So you want to work on getting those working, okay? If you manage to flatten down your index finger from earlier, you already have it, but for most people it's not that simple right on the onset. Okay? Another angle is the F major 7th approach. Now you may have encountered F as this. This is an F major 7th, and that's all fine and good. What you want to do is maintain that ring and pinky coupling and just work on this aspect. I call this the middle 4 strings. And again, we want to focus on making sure that each string is working and not giving us any ghost notes. Okay? The final aspect would be the highest 4 strings. And in this case, you're doing a mini bar with your index finger. See that? It's covering 2 strings. Okay? Now, if you combine all of these different approaches all into one move, you will have F. But it's not that easy usually. So usually how I teach my students is to jump back and forth between 2 things. This 4-string F on the lower strings, I give this the nickname the mystical F. Because it has that Phrygian feel, if you want to get the musical terminology. And then move that index finger to the highest 2 strings. And you don't really want to play that low E string, but and go back. Because more often than not, it's not these fingers that gives people trouble with the bar chord. It's the bar itself. And this is usually the first chord that you have to have your thumb behind the neck of the guitar. So you do have to apply a little bit of a vice grip to get it working. All the other chords previously, you can have your thumb over the top and that's all fine and good. But for F, you have to bring it down. So if you have a lot of practice with power chords, you're already more than halfway there usually. And something else to consider is that if your guitar is way down here, your wrist is going to be at a really awkward angle. So you can always do the classical guitar approach and put it in your left thigh. You're going to want to scoot up closer in your chair. But what this does is it throws the guitar down, and now your wrist isn't bent at a weird angle. Yeah? Up to you. Okay? But this is an F. So what I would suggest doing, working on the bar and really making sure you're getting the most important parts are actually the highest 2 strings and the lowest string. Because everywhere in between is going to be covered by fingers, right? And then jumping back and forth between the mystical F and the 5-string F. And then trying to stomp down on the whole thing. And it's okay if your first attempt sounds something like this. Rome wasn't built in a day, and that's definitely the case with the bar chord. But you want your hand to recognize that shape, yeah? So hopefully that helps you out. So there you go. Now you have the different ways to approach building an F chord. There's a couple different things going on. You can focus on just the index finger or the bar aspect of the bar chord. You can kind of work on this part of the triangle and this part of the triangle. You combine all 3 of those things and you have an F chord. Thanks for watching. You made it all the way through. Be sure to like and leave a comment below, and be sure to subscribe.